Cobalt King calling headquarters.
In episode 49 of Bullet Heaven, we took a look at Digital Reality and Grasshopper Manufacturer's time-manipulating, side-scrolling Xbox 360 shoot-'em-up, Sine Mora. You might not believe it, but despite the less than energetic delivery in that video, 3 AM lines are not exactly ideal under any circumstance. We really liked it. Enough to snag the PS Vita version. Seeing further release on PS3, PC, and, well, pretty much anything else under the sun, Sine Mora was fairly well received overall, but that wasn't where its tail ended.
Sine Mora is back for a new generation as Sine Mora EX on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. Published by THQ Nordic, Sine Mora EX adds all sorts of new features and tweaks to the game at a very attractive $20 price point, complete with physical release on PS4 and Xbox One. A forthcoming Nintendo Switch version is also in the works. What more is there to it? Let's take a look.
The gameplay in Sine Mora EX is more or less identical to the previous version we took a look at all that time ago in Series 3. Players are introduced to all of the game's core mechanics through a short tutorial stage in story mode, but of course, it wouldn't be Bullet Heaven if we didn't go over it here.
Players move their planes about the screen using the D-pad or left analog stick. In this case though, the analog stick is best for playing Sine Mora in general. Using the D-pad is a bit too swift at all times, making things very difficult to traverse through at specific points in the game. The square button, or its equivalent, allows players to move at a slower rate, but there's a much better way. Analog control allows players to fine-tune the movement of their plane simply by giving the stick more or less give, and it works very, very well on the whole.
As far as button inputs go, players engage their primary guns by pressing the cross button or its equivalent. The player's subweapon is activated with the circle button or its equivalent, and the player's time capsule technique is engaged with the R2 trigger. In story mode, this defaults to a time-slowing bullet time style technique, but many more exist like deflecting shields and even time reversers in arcade mode. The time technique is dependent on a gauge though, so careful management is often required. This gauge can be refilled via blue pickups.
Speaking of which, the core theme to Sine Mora is time, and rather than a traditional life stock or health bar, a timer will be added to or subtracted from through each stage segment. Getting hit will subtract time, while defeating enemies and collecting various time pickups will add time to the clock. At 0, the player dies and can choose whether or not to continue with limited credits. At certain points, time will stabilize and will rise or fall accordingly.
All enemies in the game have a life gauge that depletes when hit. Of course, with a higher weapon level, enemies will be dispatched much more easily. Red icons raise the player's gun level by 1 tier and is maxed out at level 9. If a player gets hit though, a portion of these pickups, up to and including all of them, are lost and must be retrieved lest they be lost forever. Green pickups also add an additional sub-weapon to the stock, which are handy in taking out bigger enemies and bosses. Each character in the game has a different sub-weapon, so knowing how each works will come in handy in a pinch.
Sine Mora EX has quite a decent length to it, with several stages taking place over many acts in story mode. The gameplay will shift between different characters on many sides of an ongoing plot, keeping things pretty fresh throughout the game. However, players that want a bit more consistency will want to take the game on in arcade mode, where different characters and capsules can be mixed and matched. More characters will be unlocked through normal play in story mode as well, boosting Sine Mora's replay value. The arcade mode also has the addition of a rank system that rises and falls depending on performance. The higher the rank, the more and faster death will come at the player.
There's even a new co-op mode available for players to take on the game with a friend. Unfortunately, multiplayer is asymmetrical, leading the second player to control an orb to assist the main player. It's something, but it's far from ideal. Having 2 players have complete control over 2 separate craft would have been awesome. Coordinating with each other to maximize time capsules and special weapons could have been super fun.
In 2-player co-op, the second player's orb is controlled twin-stick style. The right analog stick aims and engages either guns or shields, which can be toggled with the R1 button or its equivalent. Shields have a gauge that will be depleted after a certain amount of use though. At the very least, the second player adds a bit of a defensive and offensive layer to get through the game with relative ease, though multiple difficulties exist for more advanced players. It works well for what it is, but can be disorienting with the player 2 orb exploding and rematerializing with every scene change, which happens often.
There's even a competitive versus mode as well. 3 modes exist, which have players either attacking each other with orbs, twin stick style, or avoiding obstacles race style. It's a neat addition, but nothing spectacular.
Sine Mora EX's gameplay on the whole has been tweaked a bit from its original version due to its aspect ratio as well. Instead of a super wide permanently letterboxed playfield, the game takes up the whole screen without interfering with its playability. In fact, it's perhaps even a little more playable, thanks to the better view of smaller bullets. If the cinema-style super widescreen aspect ratio is more to a player's liking though, it can be switched on in the menus.
Other additional modes like a boss rush add more value and extra gameplay to the Sine Mora EX package on the whole. In the end, once again, Sine Mora EX proved to be a pretty fun experience with 1 player or 2. And of course, there are even online leaderboards to post high scores to for players that are a little more competitive. Scoring in Sine Mora may come off as simple, but there's definitely enough going on here to keep a player on their toes to maximize their scores. It's definitely not as shallow as some people would have a player think.
With the exception of enemy destruction, there are 2 main methods to increasing a player's score in Sine Mora EX's core gameplay: multipliers and meddling. In the case of multipliers, consecutive enemy kills will raise the rate by which each is scored, but if a player uses a time capsule technique, a sub-weapon, or gets hit, it will fall back down to 1 times. Learning enemy and attack patterns is critical to keeping the multiplier up.
Meanwhile, enemies will drop medals that can be collected for various pointage between 1,000 and 100,000 points. These medals will grow in value with each consecutive one picked up, but if even one is missed, their value will then drop to the basic 1,000 point amount.
There are other ways to score high as well. During time mass stabilization, a score is applied that will vary according to how much time is left on the clock. The higher the better, as a huge amount of pointage can be obtained with swift boss kills and deft skill in avoiding hazards.
Finally, stage end bonuses can yield a decent boost to a player's score when factoring in various conditions, such as hit ratio, how many hits have been sustained, and how many continues have been used. All of this is taken into consideration for a letter rank as well, which grades a player's overall performance. In arcade mode, the time spent on different ranks will also be taken into consideration.
At the end of a play session or playthrough, the player's best score is applied to the appropriate online leaderboard and can be viewed at any time. It's a decent system that should allow high score chasers to have even more fun with Sine Mora's solid gameplay.
Sine Mora EX is a game that definitely makes for a very pretty presentation on the whole. Its visuals and sound made a name for Sine Mora in the very beginning as it was, so it's no surprise that the next-gen remastered Sine Mora EX is no exception.
Sine Mora was an amazing looking game when it first debuted, but the extra level of crispiness that the PS4 and other modern systems offer, not to mention the closer vantage point afforded from the full screen 16:9 aspect ratio, really make the visuals stand out even more than before. Sine Mora EX looks especially gorgeous in the later stages. It's also PS4 Pro enhanced and even native 4K capable on PC via Steam.
The mechanical and character design really takes center stage though, something we were pleasantly surprised at when the game was first released on Xbox 360. Pretty much everything from the planes to the bosses and especially some of the backgrounds in the game drip with creativity, yet boasts a fair dose of nuance as well. Meanwhile, the UI in Sine Mora EX is as clean and easy to navigate as ever, with everything from how to play to how to score fairly easily accessible.
Sine Mora EX's sound, on the other hand, leaves a bit to be desired. Let's get the good out of the way first. The newly revoiced characters are delivered well, for the most part. The original release saw voiceovers only in Hungarian, which was a neat twist, but the English voiceovers seemed to make the story flow quite a bit better. However, some characters have some stiff delivery, and there are times when some pretty foul language occurs with unnecessary forcefulness, almost as if it was cursing for cursing's sake.
Oh God, fucking damn it.
Meanwhile, the music, headed up by Akira Yamaoka of Silent Hill fame, is less great though. It's actually a pretty poor match on the whole, with a lot of ambience-heavy cues and some odd cheesy-sounding boss music. A more upbeat soundtrack could have added a little more urgency and flair to the huge boss battles and sometimes claustrophobic stage portions. We suppose it works for all intents and purposes, but it's definitely not to our taste. Sine Mora EX's story is also some pretty dark stuff as well. Needless to say, it definitely earns its M rating.
The Empire cast him into Bokumono for rape. And for all anyone cared, he could have rotted there forever.
Rounding out the presentation are a series of trophies and achievements to add a small layer of replayability to the game on the whole. So, how does Sine Mora EX stack up? Let's take a look.
Nice little toy you've got there, but nothing can save your ass now.
The analog controls that Sine Mora EX boasts do a great job of getting players into the action intuitively.
Digital purists will also have options for enhanced control, but analog is still miles better here.
With several game modes and multiple difficulties, there's a great challenge here for every skill type.
Getting 1cc on any mode is sure to be challenging, but harder difficulties will keep veterans satisfied.
With so many game modes, arcade ship combinations, and online leaderboards, there's plenty to play in Sine Mora EX.
The single-player modes are long enough as it is, but the added versus and cooperative modes add yet more replay to the package.
Visually, Sine Mora EX looks even better than its previous renditions.
The boss and character designs once again take center stage and look awesome doing it.
The music in Sine Mora EX suffers with a lackluster and sometimes off-putting OST.
But the new English voiceovers are mostly great. Some stiff delivery and forced profanity is a bit iffy though.
The addition of cooperative play and versus modes in addition to the Sine Mora we all know ultimately makes it a better game than before.
As always, the time-bending aspects to Sine Mora EX makes for an engaging, innovative time.
Sine Mora EX is just $20 at retail and on the PlayStation Network, an excellent price point for such an extensive shoot-'em-up.
To see this game come to retail was pretty sweet, but Steam copies are even less expensive, at about $10 US.
Sine Mora EX is just the excuse we've been looking for to revisit this admittedly fun game. Its enhancements make this the definitive version of the game, and it gets a 4.5 out of 5. You can get a copy of Sine Mora EX on PS4 or Xbox One at retail or online today for just $20. The Steam version is also available for just $10 US. It was pretty neat to revisit this one again.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't expecting two-player support, but it was definitely nice to see, as weird as it was.
Yeah, it would have been cool to have 2 full ships, but I guess given the mechanics, this is as good as it could have been.
I guess. I definitely wasn't a fan of exploding every 2 seconds.
Yeah. Here are some other great side-scrollers we've covered in previous episodes.